Wyoming, 1880. Flurries danced like specters across the concrete, frosting her luggage and mirroring the deathly pallor of her shivering hands. That midday locomotive was a ghost now, abandoning her to the predatory night and screaming gales. 3 excruciating hours. That was how long she had stood there. She slammed her heels down. The bitter chill bit straight through her delicate city footwear, completely defenseless against this brutal frontier wilderness. No garment or past experience could armor her against such harshness. Seeking a lifeline, she pulled out Mr. Fletcher's final message. Those immaculate strokes of ink had sparked a flicker of salvation just 14 days prior. My enterprise thrives, and I require a mate to anchor a refined culture within our expanding territory, his words had declared. She felt destiny in that phrasing, a chance at a true bond, alongside safe harbor following her sire's utter ruin. Their exchanged pages painted an alpha figure boasting deep ambition and wealth. Plus, Wolf Creek felt like divine intervention. It happened to be the exact settlement holding her sibling William captive. His previous note surfaced moons ago, carrying a frantic, twisted energy with scrawls she barely knew. They will keep me locked away forever, Lizzie. Not unless... She physically snapped her thoughts away. Dwelling on his madness was impossible tonight. She was moments from encountering her fated groom. 60 days back, she was lingering in the ruins of her father's library, gripping a banishment order while the graveyard dirt still haunted her senses. Debt collectors had swarmed like carrion crows, stripping away her sanctuary and her academy teaching role in mere days. They severed her only income stream, blaming her patriarch's sinful demise. Then that fateful listing appeared. Seeking a wife, prosperous entrepreneur in a rooted frontier haven desires a cultured, learned companion. His call for a bride manifested during her darkest hour, providing an exit from urban shame while drawing her near her sibling. It screamed of predestined magic, right? Hey, lady. We are shutting the doors momentarily. The gray-whiskered depot manager glared with a rigid stance, radiating quiet sympathy. Whoever you are waiting for is a no-show. He is bound to show up, she whispered, breaking eye contact. Mr. Fletcher promised in ink he would greet the 4 o'clock arrival. He will be here, she mentally chanted. Their written bond proved they were kindred spirits. He craved deep, intelligent banter after surviving seasons surrounded by feral laborers. It is pushing 7 o'clock, ma'am, the worker pressed. 4 o'clock was a distant memory. She peeked at her father's silver timepiece, the solitary heirloom surviving the repo men. Paying for this passage totally drained her funds. Retreating simply was not an option. Lady? The worker's gruff tone shattered her trance. You can crash at the inn down the road if you need shelter till morning. I am here to wed, she proclaimed, tilting her head up. Mr. Fletcher. A silhouette suddenly materialized through the blizzard, looming and driven. Hope surged. Yet the stranger stepping close was thick and flushed, completely shattering the illusion of the wealthy lord his notes promised. A premium trench stretched tight over his gut, while his eyes devoured her form like a predator sizing up its next meal. Miss Harrington. His raspy tone absolutely shredded her romantic fantasies. She dipped into a bow, her mouth frozen by dread and the chill. Yes, sir. Elizabeth Harrington, hailing from the east. It is a joy to... This is a disaster. He cut her off, circling her like prey. A total failure. She stared. Excuse me? Past your prime and overly book-smart. You have never done an ounce of real labor, have you, sweetheart? A fiery flush ignited her skin. Sir, I swear my competence is absolute. I require a mate to run the shop from sunrise till twilight, not a privileged academic. The ad explicitly demanded schooling, she fired back, her throat constricting. Plus, I gave endorsements from the institute where I instructed. Instructed? He snarled like a curse. How does that benefit my bottom line? Are you able to drag 50-pound grain bags? Just let me prove myself. Absolutely not. What a massive waste of time for us both. Have a decent night, lady. He pivoted and marched off, his heavy steps fracturing the icy crust. She remained paralyzed. A brutal wave of shame scorched her soul, burning far worse than the freezing temps. Nobody had ever discarded her with such savage disrespect. Back home, being cast aside was coded in manners. Out here, it arrived with a vicious smirk. "Hold on," she cried out. "Please, sir, I am utterly stranded." "That is not my problem," he threw back over his shoulder. "You should have remained in your own world." Then the storm devoured his silhouette, abandoning her to her luggage and the suffocating gravity of reality. The railway clerk had vanished into his booth, clearly cringing at the awkward spectacle. Salty drops stung her vision, yet she fiercely commanded her tears to stay locked away. Showing tears to strangers was a weakness, her old man always insisted. That rule applied even while stranded at a desolate transit stop at dusk. Her mind shifted to Liam. He was locked up locally on alleged robbery charges. Rescuing him drew her to this place just as strongly as finding safety. His final mailed note felt totally off. Normal updates masked strategically underlined phrases, forming a private warning just for her. They had used that secret cipher since childhood. Created during quiet nights in their dad's study, those concealed words left her absolutely terrified. Local cop hiding something. Require backup. Get here fast. Lethal threat. Liam kept the details vague, yet his desperation screamed through the paper. Whatever he uncovered landed him behind bars. Now she was marooned in this forested nowhere, armed only with her intelligence. She represented his sole lifeline. Rolling her shoulders back, Eliza refused to break. First priority was scoring a motel room. By sunrise, she'd start digging into his case. Maybe she could secure a tutoring gig here. Suddenly, a wasted roughneck shoved out of the local dive bar, staggering right toward her. "Check this out. Brand new meat," the guy mumbled, lunging to grab her sleeve. Eliza yanked herself away, but her boot snagged violently against the cracked concrete platform. Gravity twisted as she plummeted toward the rails, until heavily muscled arms suddenly braced her fall. The stranger effortlessly hauled her steady, shoving the intoxicated creep away with just a casual flick of his wrist. "Back off, Miller." The commanding growl resonated deeply, sending literal tremors through the solid chest supporting her. "Sober up at home." The drunkard's hazy gaze instantly snapped into a terrified stare. "My bad, Chief. Just messing around." The guy scrambled off, suddenly completely alert. Eliza slowly tipped her chin up, freezing entirely as she took in his striking features. A rescuer loomed like a massive giant, his broad chest straining the seams of a battered leather jacket. A dark baseball cap shadowed his razor-sharp cheekbones and a square jaw covered in heavy scruff. Yet those irises absolutely paralyzed her. They glowed a vibrant, inhuman gold in the twilight, piercing straight through her tough exterior. Time effectively stopped. The heat radiating from his large palms felt like pure fire searing through her winter jacket. Blinking like he realized how closely they were touching, he smoothly placed her back on solid footing. "Are you unhurt, miss?" His tone dropped to a dangerous, gravelly murmur that sent shockwaves through her. "Yeah," she breathed. "Thanks for the save, Mr. Chief Wyatt Hayes." The exact guy locking Liam up, Eliza realized. "Officer," she replied, instantly rebuilding her mental walls. "Eliza Harrington, just arrived from Boston." A strange shadow crossed his rugged face. Did he recognize her name? The emotion vanished instantly. "Harrington," he murmured thoughtfully. "Got relatives around here?" Her heart skipped. Liam. If the town knew, she would be blacklisted from every local motel. "Nope," she lied flawlessly. "I'm completely solo. It's a pretty standard last name." "Wolf Creek plays rough with solitary outsiders," the cop warned quietly. "Particularly when the deep freeze hits." "Starting to figure that out," Eliza grumbled. A slight smirk tugged at his lips. "It's an isolated place, but we protect the pack." He eyed her suitcases. "Widow Wilson owns a bed and breakfast down Timber Avenue. Cheap prices, spotless sheets. She might even have some gig work if you're broke." "Thanks for the tip, but I hate being a burden." "You aren't." He easily hoisted her heavy duffel bag. Assisting lost tourists is literally my job description out here. Defeated, she trailed behind him. They navigated the icy pavement, passing closed storefronts and darkened neon signs. A couple of locals stared intensely before scurrying inside their houses. Everyone goes off the grid early, she observed, exhaling white mist. Only the smart ones, he agreed. It gets wicked dark. Suddenly, an eerie, lingering howl echoed from the snowy peaks. Wolves, she whispered. The chief angled his jaw, tracking the sound. Timber wolves. They usually avoid the city limits. Usually, she repeated skeptically. Meaning, sometimes they visit. He locked onto her gaze, his feral eyes literally shining in the darkness. Every predator claims a territory, Eliza. Follow the pack rules and you'll stay perfectly safe. His tone carried a distinct, chilling threat. They halted outside a double-level timber home, golden illumination spilling through the glass. A weathered placard declared it Wilson's Guest House. This is it, he announced, dropping her suitcases near the porch. The owner will get you checked in. I appreciate it, officer. She scrutinized him under the porch light, harsh, unyielding, not entirely human, definitely feral. You've been extremely helpful, she whispered. This pack looks out for its members, he repeated, shooting her a loaded stare. Even temporary visitors. Their gazes collided, sparking a heavy, invisible energy in the night air. A bizarre magnetic gravity yanked at her core, tilting the world. Then he retreated. Have a good evening, lady. Night, Chief. She lingered on the steps, observing until the shadows swallowed his massive silhouette entirely. Reaching for the knob, her fingers paused. The cryptic note stashed in her shoulder bag felt scorchingly hot. She withdrew the paper, tracing the concealed message once more. Local law hides a monster. Need backup. Hurry. A warning. What supernatural reality did William stumble upon? Which lethal mystery ultimately stripped away his liberty? Elizabeth squared her posture. She traveled to this cursed town seeking explanations. She intended to unearth the facts for William, for herself. And if Wyatt Hayes concealed darkness, she'd expose him. Chapter 1. The bed and breakfast's eating area felt cozy yet unassuming, offering sanctuary from the freezing midnight chill. Heat drifted off deep plates of hunted meat broth, the heavy scent triggering an intense hunger pang in Elizabeth's gut. Her memory of her last actual meal was entirely blank. Dig right in, honey, the hostess urged, dumping warm rolls onto the counter. We've got tons. Elizabeth surveyed the room. The owner was rounded and sweet, sporting metallic gray highlights. Beside her sat Laura, a gorgeous crimson-haired boutique employee. Then there was Mrs. Hendricks, a rigid-looking traveler making a pit stop before heading up north. Back in the city, Elizabeth effortlessly handled these social dynamics, knowing exact responses, timing fake grins, and preserving absolute poise. Now she scanned for subtle shifts, flattening her serviette while attempting to blend into this bizarre, hidden society. Mrs. Wilson vanished to grab extra carbs. The second the heavy door shut, the redhead drifted closer to the older guest. That's the girl, she hissed, projecting her voice intentionally. Fletcher's contracted mate, the chick he dumped at the transit hub. Absolutely tragic, Mrs. Hendricks muttered, squinting through her glasses. But I can't say I'm entirely shocked by it. Blind binding contracts always crash and burn. A high-status female would never stoop to such pathetic networking. Rumor says he smelled her weak aura and declared she'd perish within days here. The boutique girl continued, enjoying the drama. Labeled her a stale, magicless outcast while the whole pack watched. Elizabeth stared a hole into her soup, face ablaze. City elites never let their targets hear the trash talk up front. Now she's trapped, the older traveler noted quietly. Probably lacks the funds to catch a flight back. Makes you question her bloodline. Top-tier witches don't usually wind up stranded like this. The alpha carried her luggage. Laura smirked sharply. He never gives outsiders a second glance, let alone a female. Maybe her moral compass is as broken as her status, Mrs. Hendricks judged, exhaling sharply. Elizabeth squeezed her silverware until her knuckles bleached white. determined to hide any flinch from them. Mrs. Wilson marched back in, instantly reading the tense energy. Elizabeth's stiff spine versus the gossip's overly fake grins. "Laura," the host warned, slamming the carb basket onto the table with aggressive force. "If you're curious about our new guest, interrogate her directly rather than muttering spells like immature fledglings." The redhead turned crimson. "I was merely recapping the Fletcher incident." "Which she literally lived through and doesn't need rehashed," Mrs. Wilson fired back. Softening her gaze toward Elizabeth, she added, "Pardon the intrusion, sweetheart. Rural covens fuel themselves on drama like cities drain electricity. It's nothing personal. I get that fresh blood sparks questions," Elizabeth replied, forcing a stiff nod. Laura bounced back instantly. "Fine, since we're playing the honesty game, why did a big city girl hike out to this isolated territory? You definitely had better mating prospects back east." The sheer audacity almost caused Elizabeth to gag. Urban supernaturals considered such prying offensive. "Laura," Mrs. Wilson growled, but the crimson-haired woman simply shrugged. "You ordered me to be straightforward." Elizabeth wiped her mouth with the cloth, stalling for time. "My life trajectory shifted abruptly back home. My father crossed over last month, leaving me desperate for a reset." "She's an educator," Mrs. Wilson cut in defensively. "An instructor from an elite Boston prep school. Talk about lucky timing for us," Laura scoffed. "Understatement of the year. Not after Billy Thompson torched the supply shed out back just yesterday." "The board is absolutely frantic," Mrs. Wilson admitted. "As their secretary, I assure you, they're ready to sign practically anyone who holds a valid teaching license right now." "Practically anyone?" Mrs. Hendricks repeated, her gaze turning sharp. "Surely they still require solid recommendations and a decent background." Elizabeth stiffened momentarily before raising her head high. "Professor Edward Harrington from Cambridge was my father. My qualifications speak for themselves." She kept her darkest truth hidden. No one could ever find out about William. His incarceration had already ruined one job opportunity for her. Discovery would destroy this chance. "The committee convenes tomorrow morning," Mrs. Wilson interjected smoothly. "I can get you an audience." "I appreciate the favor," Elizabeth whispered. "Don't be silly. You need a job, and we desperately need staff. Plus," she gave a sly wink, "these kids desperately require some strict East Coast rules." "And speaking of strict," Laura purred, leaning closer, "the sheriff was remarkably fast to come to your rescue. He never pays attention to newcomers." "He was just acting decently," Elizabeth countered, her cheeks warming. "Hayes? Decent?" Laura shot her a skeptical look. "The guy is a brooding wall of silence. He stalks around town like some kind of vengeful spirit." "Watch it, Laura," Mrs. Wilson cautioned. "I'm just voicing the town gossip. Yes, he's gorgeous, but he practically radiates this primal, untamed energy." She gave an exaggerated shudder. "Though I wouldn't complain if he decided to manhandle me." The memory of his grip on her hips and those burning golden eyes flashed in Elizabeth's mind. "He acted perfectly civilized." "He is a decent guy," Mrs. Wilson stated with conviction. "Wolf Creek was absolute chaos until he took charge. Rumor has it he's brutally hard on one specific inmate," Mrs. Hendrick whispered. "Some East Coast criminal. Total solitary confinement. Absolutely zero guests allowed." Elizabeth's pulse skipped a beat. "William." "The sheriff simply follows protocol by the book," Mrs. Wilson stated defensively. "Anyway, who wants dessert?" Later that evening, Elizabeth huddled by her bedroom window, staring at her brother's unfolded note. Under the desk lamp, the encrypted words practically burned into her vision. "Sheriff hiding something. Require backup. Hurry. Lethal threat." What on earth was he concealing? And what could she possibly do? Getting abandoned at the train terminal had been mortifying, yet it suddenly felt like a lucky break. Marrying Fletcher would have stripped her of all independence. Posing as an educator gave her perfect cover to investigate and strategize. The only catch was that she had to cozy up to Wyatt Hayes. She remembered the way his gaze pierced her. A strange, vibrating pull that hummed through her veins like magic. pure peril. Resting her face against the freezing window pane, she watched the quiet snowfall. This place offered a fresh start and a fake identity. Yet if she earned the Alpha Cop's confidence only to stab him in the back, wouldn't she be the real monster? What if her brother was mistaken? Wolf Creek Academy was nothing but a basic, single-room cabin heated by a clanking old radiator. Scuffed tables pointed toward a whiteboard, while the glass panes were coated in dirt. A lingering burnt smell hung heavy. "It isn't glamorous," Mrs. Wilson admitted as they walked inside. "But it's our only option." "I can work with this," Elizabeth noted, peeling off her winter gear to examine a neglected bookcase. The committee brought her on board earlier that day. Her elite background crushed any skepticism, making her the official instructor before lunchtime. By 1 o'clock, she faced 28 kids, ranging from 5 to 16 years old. The majority glared at her with intense distrust. Others just seemed checked out. "Welcome, everyone," she announced. "I'm your new instructor, Miss Harrington." A ginger kid sneered. "Until you bail on us like Barnes did." "We shall see about that, Mr. Thompson," she shot back. Billy Thompson, the little firebug himself. "Well, considering no local rancher has swept me off my feet quite yet, I plan on sticking around," she challenged. "Let's start with a placement test." It quickly became obvious that their academic foundation was an absolute disaster. The teenage guys could hardly sound out words, while the little ones lacked even the most basic fundamentals. Only one pupil showed genuine interest, a tiny girl sporting pigtails and intense dark eyes, practically vibrating to answer every prompt. "Excuse me, Miss Harrington," the kid piped up during social studies. "Does Boston actually sit on the coast with massive boats?" "Absolutely, Clara. Vessels dock there from across the globe." "Have you ever spotted a leviathan out there?" Billy scoffed loudly. "Ain't no such thing." "There aren't any such things," Elizabeth corrected his grammar smoothly. "And check your attitude, Mr. Thompson." Clara ignored him. "What about wolves? Any packs in Boston?" A bizarre question. "Not within city limits." "Oh, we've got tons around here," Billy smirked. "They snack on nosy little brats like you." "They don't eat humans," Clara shot back. "I mean, normal ones don't. The shifters, though, maybe." The classroom absolutely lost it. "Clara's a werewolf fangirl," some kid yelled out. "My dad says she needs therapy." Then, dead quiet. Elizabeth clapped twice, instantly killing the noise. "In this class, we respect everyone's theories. Moving on." By 3 p.m., Elizabeth was absolutely drained. While the others packed up, Clara hung back. "Miss Harrington," she murmured, "do you think I'm crazy?" Elizabeth crouched down to her eye level. "No way. You're just brave and highly imaginative, which is a gift." Looking paranoid, Clara whispered, "I actually saw a wolf guy in the forest behind my dad's house." Elizabeth froze for a second. "Really? What did he look like?" "Massive. Way bigger than a timber wolf. He had these glowing, honey-colored eyes." "Amber," Elizabeth realized, shivering. "He didn't attack," Clara clarified. "Just stared. People swear the local cop covers up their territory. Keeps our pets safe." Before Elizabeth could react, the kid bolted. Locking up the school building, she zoned out completely. So distracted, she practically slammed right into a literal wall of muscle. "Miss Harrington." She tilted her head way back to meet Sheriff Hayes's gaze. Under the afternoon sun, he looked dangerously feral. "Sheriff Hayes," she managed, trying to sound completely unfazed. "Afternoon. Word is you snagged the teaching gig." There headed today, a stray lock of jet black hair fell right over his intense eyes, untamed, just like him. "Gossip spreads fast in Wolf Creek." He gave a broad shrug. "Tiny towns. Everyone knows everything." They strolled together without speaking, their winter boots breaking the icy pavement. "City folks usually bail on this place," the cop noted casually. "Too boring, too rough." "I'm definitely not most people," Elizabeth shot back. They paused at the main intersection. Her apartment complex lay to the right. The precinct was left. She accidentally stared at the station, catching his sharp attention. "Something fascinating about lockup, Miss Harrington?" he pressed. Swallowing her sudden panic, she faked a grin. "Just my siblings swearing you're hiding monsters in there," she thought. "Just being nosy," she lied effortlessly. "Boston cops operate differently. Literally everything is different here." His tone dropped an octave, turning deadly serious. "Out in these woods, we follow primal rules. Pack lands, surviving, guarding our own." "Is that why you wear the badge?" Elizabeth challenged. "To protect your turf?" His response was barely a whisper. "I rarely owned anything." His gaze locked onto hers. "But this pack adopted me, gave me a mission. Sometimes, fitting in is everything." Stopping by her apartment building's entrance, he gave a curt nod. "Have a good night, Miss Harrington." She tracked his retreating figure, pulse pounding. Upstairs, William's crazy letter sat on her desk. The cop is hiding a deadly secret. Yet a far more dangerous question haunted her now. What if her brother was totally mistaken? Chapter 2. A month and a half here taught Elizabeth plenty, like fixing the broken classroom space heater without choking her students in smoke. She knew exactly which steps in her landlord's hall squeaked, how to budget groceries during blizzards, and crucially, that being tolerated didn't mean being welcomed. "Morning, city girl, Mr." Peterson yelled from the convenience store. He sounded friendly enough, but that annoying nickname had definitely stuck. Regardless of her dressing down or using their slang, she'd always be an alien here. Helpful to the pack, maybe, but never family. "Hey there, Pete," she countered with that flawless, fake customer service smile. "Did the mail truck show up?" "Zip for you, lady. Delivery got totally snowed in." She gave a brief nod, hiding how crushed she felt. 3 letters sent to the state penitentiary and absolute radio silence. The icy sidewalks cracked underfoot as she trudged toward the campus. Non-stop February blizzards had totally buried the area, turning Wolf Creek into a gorgeous but brutally isolating frozen wasteland. A massive silhouette strolled out of the police precinct just ahead of her. Huge, imposing, completely undeniable. Her heart did a stupid flip. She had completely fabricated countless excuses to chat up Wyatt Hayes. Campus security updates, pedestrian crosswalk issues, local municipal history for her lectures, all calculated plays to win his confidence so she could visit her brother in lockup. Yet every single move failed. He'd give polite smirks, guarded kindness, then smoothly block her the second she brought up the precinct cells. "Better get to class, Teach," he'd dodge. Or, "I won't hold you up." A month and a half wasted with zero progress. Even worse, her emotional walls were totally crumbling. Her spy mission was getting messy. Those brief grins of his lived rent-free in her head. That deep, gravelly voice sent crazy butterflies through her stomach. Crushing on him ruined her focus, making her pull punches instead of digging deeper. And scariest of all, she hardly believed William's warnings anymore. Wyatt led with steady authority, gaining respect instead of fear. Stopping playground fights and helping widows didn't match William's monster claims. Then again, her brother constantly lied. Shaking it off, she refocused. William was her priority. Any attraction to Wyatt Hayes meant absolutely nothing. "Miss Harrington," Wyatt nodded as they approached. "Sheriff?" Bundling her scarf against the chill, he explained. "Checking the Millers. Their youngest is sick." His golden eyes watched her. "You're up before dawn. Prepping lessons. The seniors are covering local politics." Seeing a chance, she asked, "Maybe you could visit class? Give a talk on maintaining peace here." A slight frown appeared. "I'm terrible with crowds. The students would love it." Stepping closer, she murmured, "You've really captivated them, especially little Clara. She talks about you like some local myth." A flash of worry crossed his face. "Clara's mind runs wild. The kid is brilliant, just highly inquisitive." Holding his stare, she added, "She constantly mentions shapeshifters and wolves." He visibly flinched. "Kids and their wild tales." Looking at the peaks, he warned, "Blizzard is approaching fast. Cancel school today." "That's absurd. The kids are already en route." "Send them back immediately," he demanded. Before 12. I won't let students get stuck in this blizzard. I'll weigh my options, she replied coldly. He closed the distance, his radiating body heat battling the freezing breeze. He smelled of rugged leather and pure feral instinct. She caught her breath. Elizabeth. Hearing him speak her name so deliberately sparked a deep heat inside her. Swear to me. Send them home. His desperate tone shocked her. For a second, he almost grabbed her. He raised an arm, only to drop it. Have a good day. She watched him storm off, annoyance mixed with a far riskier emotion. 6 weeks passed, bringing 0 answers but way too much attachment. Shapeshifters aren't real, Clara. Everyone knows that, Billy announced loudly, pulling Elizabeth away from a struggling kid. Sitting rigidly with a flushed face, Clara fired back. They are real. I saw one myself. The room burst into giggles. 6 weeks had tamed some wildness, but not their raw, rural attitude. Settle down right now, Elizabeth commanded sharply as the gale battered the building. Get back to your maps. But Miss Harrington, Clara pleaded desperately. I'm telling the truth. The sheriff knows. That's why our farm animals stay safe, unlike Riverdale. Billy sneered. The sheriff doesn't buy into bedtime stories. He's just a crack shot. He doesn't even carry a weapon, Clara argued passionately. He literally speaks to the pack. I've watched him out in the timber after dark, and the beasts obey him. A dead hush blanketed the room. Elizabeth's heart raced. Was this the secret William unearthed? She rationalized it as a kid's wild imagination, yet Clara's sheer certainty made her hesitate. Clara? She pressed softly. What exactly did you witness? She's making it up, Billy chimed in. Total garbage. Nobody wanders the woods after dark. Her old man would beat her senseless. I swear it's the truth, Clara shrieked, her voice breaking. Just wait and see. I'll prove it to everyone. The remaining school hours dragged on in uncomfortable quiet. Staring firmly at her desk, Clara avoided all eye contact until the 3 o'clock dismissal tone sounded. Students scrambled into winter gear, rushing to outrun the blizzard. Go directly to your houses, Elizabeth warned. No slacking. Clara bolted first, her tiny frame tense. Elizabeth supervised until the final student disappeared into the blizzard, then started her cleanup routine. The roaring gale completely masked his approach. She violently flinched when the front entrance suddenly banged open. John Sutton blocked the entrance, trembling in frost and sheer panic. Even from a distance, the heavy stench of cheap liquor radiated off him. "Where's my little girl?" he bellowed. Absolute dread seized Elizabeth's chest. She departed with the rest of the class 60 minutes back. She never made it back, he snapped. Assumed the blizzard trapped her here. It didn't, Elizabeth replied, her pulse going into overdrive. She departed immediately following. She paused. Right after a spat. Following what, exactly? He demanded aggressively. We had a minor situation, she confessed. The students mocked her shapeshifter tales, severely rattling her. His expression instantly turned murderous. Those damn fables again. Ever since her mother passed, he choked out. 24 months, and she refuses to embrace reality. Elizabeth remembered the local gossip. Clara was discovered beside her mother's corpse, rescue arriving entirely too late. You caused this, you stuck-up city girl. His sorrow morphed into blinding rage, feeding her absolute delusions. She requires strict discipline. Listen to me, Mr. Sutton. If she gets hurt, you're solely to blame, he bellowed loudly. She's literally everything I have. Drop it, John. Wyatt loomed in the entryway, snowflakes whipping past him. Sutton spun around. This outsider is brainwashing Clara. Drop it, Wyatt snapped lethally. Your girl is gone. Pointing fingers changes nothing. Sutton deflated. I can't survive losing her, too, he choked out. Elizabeth gently touched his sleeve. A shudder racked his frame. We will bring her back, she murmured. She just went to investigate those wolves we discussed. I ignored her, Sutton rasped, breaking. I just ordered her to grow up. If only I... You're showing up right now, Elizabeth interrupted. That counts. The blinding panic receded into a resolute nod. Wyatt observed quietly before pivoting. The woods, Sutton suddenly realized. She definitely headed into the timberland. United by dread, they shoved outside. Sutton screamed for his child, sobbing apologies to Elizabeth as the precinct's glow finally pierced the whiteout. Wyatt was already inside, aggressively tracing search grids on maps. His head snapped up when they entered. Clara is gone, Elizabeth panted, completely winded. She took off after our argument. She likely bolted into the woods. A dark emotion flashed across Wyatt's gaze. Grim acceptance. When did she leave? He demanded, grabbing his winter jacket. Under an hour ago. The cold will kill her, Sutton panicked. We'll get her, Wyatt ordered. Rally every able body at the chapel. He glared at Elizabeth. Miss Harrington, lock yourself inside the Wilson residence. I'm going with you. Not a chance. That wasn't a request. Wyatt closed the distance. This isn't the city. This is a Wyoming whiteout. Locals drop dead 10 feet from their own doors. I won't sit around while a kid I supervise is lost. You need to recognize your physical limits. I know why Clara ran, her route, and I wouldn't sleep anyway. Guilt is a terrible blanket. Then my willpower has to suffice. He aggressively dragged his fingers through his hair. This isn't the game to test your grit. It's fatal. Precisely why you need every volunteer. You're dangerously pig-headed. She's right, Sutton added. Wyatt shot him a murderous scowl. Don't feed her delusions. I don't require validation, Elizabeth fired back, sipping her parka. Just hand me insulated gloves and a heavy flashlight. Christ. Wyatt towered over her. You are insanely aggravating. The word is capable, she cut him off. The tension shifted instantly. His fury morphed into electric heat. You join, you obey my commands. Agreed. One misstep, I physically haul you inside. That mental picture made her cheeks burn. Understood. Do you really? He rumbled, predator eyes flashing. Because if this storm takes you... He trailed off. I'll play it safe, she breathed. They lingered inches apart. For one electrifying second, she swore his lips would crash into hers. Are you kidding? My little girl is freezing while you two stare at each other. Wyatt stepped back, shattering the magnetic pull. Lay her up, he ordered roughly. Rendezvous at the chapel in 10 minutes. Fall behind, and you're left behind. He locked eyes with her one last time. Elizabeth? She paused. Stay glued to my side. The pack is vicious. Chapter 3. The chapel's bronze bell echoed through the whiteout, yanking the community from their warm homes and local shops. When Elizabeth finally reached the rendezvous spot, wrapped in her thickest winter gear, roughly 40 locals were already there. Store owners, cowboys, and shift workers, united in dread. Miss Harrington! Mrs. Wilson hurried forward, panic etching deep lines into her plump face. The other kids arrived safely. Why are you out in this mess? Get back indoors. I'm joining the rescue crew, Elizabeth countered, securing her wool scarf. It's too dangerous, honey, the older woman pleaded. Let the guys handle it. Clara bolted because of our classroom incident. Sitting this out isn't an option. Mrs. Wilson searched her resolute expression before sighing. Fine, count me in as well. I've called this town home for 30 years. I can navigate that timberland blindfolded. Before she could reply, Wyatt's commanding bark silenced the chatter. Looming on the chapel stairs, snow blanketing his dark jacket, he looked utterly primal, hard and unyielding. We've got a kid lost in the nastiest blizzard of the year, he announced. 7-year-old Clara Sutton was spotted trekking east from the academy, probably aiming for Widow's Peak. He pointed toward the trees. Squads of 5. Flashlights and safety lines only. Leave your guns. Visibility is 0, and I won't risk friendly fire. He swiftly assembled the squads, categorizing everyone by survival skills and terrain. Elizabeth found herself paired with Mrs. Wilson, Peterson, the mechanic, and the Alpha himself. Maintain physical contact with your team. he barked. "If you spot her, blow your emergency whistle 3 consecutive times. Don't wander off if you get separated. Just keep sounding this," the sheriff instructed, weaving among the townsfolk to distribute gear and safety signals. Halting right in front of her, his voice dropped. "You can still back out." She held his gaze without flinching. "I'm coming." A brief spark of approval flashed in his expression before he ordered, "Keep to my shadow. Tread exactly in my footprints." The rescue teams pushed forward, their lanterns bobbing weakly through the raging blizzard. Her squad headed toward the eastern woods, the exact spot the missing girl used to insist harbored lycanthropes. Gale force gusts tore through the evergreen canopy, pelting them with horizontal ice. Almost instantly, the settlement disappeared from view. Keeping pace with the lawman's massive steps proved difficult for her, as she repeatedly stumbled on concealed black ice. "Ease up," Mrs. Wilson hollered. "Some of us aren't built like lumberjacks, boss." He immediately shortened his gait, remaining hyper-focused on everyone's safety despite the ticking clock. He'd pause constantly, tilting his jaw toward the freezing gusts while taking deep sniffs as though tracking prey by smell alone. Bellowing the little girl's full name through gloved hands, they spent 60 grueling minutes fighting the storm. Frost bit deep into her winter clothes, leaving her cheeks and fingers completely senseless. Meanwhile, their leader advanced with unwavering confidence, pivoting on invisible cues, breathing heavily, and angling his chin to pursue a hidden path. Forcing her way beside him, she panted, "How are you steering us? Visibility is barely 10 feet. A strange gleam caught his stare. "I've done this before. The woods talk." When asked what the trees were saying, he paused. "Company." Icy dread crawled down her back. "The local pack?" Searching the timberline, he gave a curt nod. "Just observing, getting a feel for us." Right on cue, an eerie wail pierced the squall, quickly joined by a chorus of answering cries. "We're surrounded," the older gentleman hissed. The sheriff demanded calm, insisting the beasts weren't seeking prey. At least, not human prey. Tension laced her tone as she demanded proof. His unblinking stare felt ancient and feral. "Have a little faith." Before she could argue, the older lady pointed at a collapsed spruce. Peering through the blizzard's whiteout, she spotted crimson fabric snagged on bark. Clara's, their guide immediately verified. Snatching the knitted wool, he took a massive sniff before pivoting straight north. "Follow me, we're right on top of her." Adrenaline kicked in. The canine chorus intensified as massive, old-growth timber narrowed their path, compelling the team to march single file. Despite her muscles screaming in agony, she kept pace until the lawman threw his fist up. "Quiet!" Beyond the howling gales, a faint whimper broke the silence. "Sweetheart," the schoolteacher yelled. "It's me, your teacher." The tears abruptly stopped, replaced by a trembling response. Scrambling toward the sound, the adults discovered a modest ditch sheltered by a boulder. Tucked away in the powder sat the little fugitive. She was deathly pale and freezing cold, yet miraculously breathing. Slipping down the embankment, the educator yanked the freezing girl into a tight hug. "Why would you wander off like this?" "The big dogs," the child shivered out. "They guided me to this shelter." The teacher shot a look at the arriving sheriff, whose expression gave nothing away. "Time to heat you up," the man announced, stripping off his heavy outerwear to swaddle the shivering kid. "Your dad is losing his mind out there." But the child was frantic to explain. "Those animals were gigantic, and the way they stared." "Quiet down, sweetie," the older woman cooed, pulling out a metal bottle. "Drink this spirit. Doctor's instructions." The little girl choked back a gulp with a grimace. The lawman blew a trio of piercing trills on his safety gear. Those distinct frequencies cut right through the howling tempest. "Are your legs working, kiddo?" When she cried about taking a tumble and hurting her foot, the massive man effortlessly scooped her into his chest. "I've got you secure. Nothing's going to hurt you." With that, the arduous journey homeward commenced. Observing his tender side, Elizabeth noted how he whispered comforting words to the little one while carefully modifying his stride to protect her sprain. "The pack was babysitting," the older lady muttered near the teacher's ear. protecting instead of preying. The educator stumbled over her response. But that's... She meant to call it absurd. Yet somehow the concept of logic had totally failed her out here. A subtle grin crossed the matron's face. The wilderness keeps its own secrets, honey. City smarts won't explain everything in these woods. Up front, the tiny survivor spoke louder than the breeze. You were the one ordering them around earlier, right, mister? The big beasts. That's why I'm safe. His mumbled response got totally drowned out before it reached the teacher's ears. Regardless of his exact words, a massive grin broke through the kid's agony. Suddenly, the school teacher realized the woods were dead silent. The baying hadn't just drifted away, it had abruptly ceased the exact second the rescue succeeded. Still, heavy gazes seemed to burn into her from the timberline. Rumors of his dark secret echoed in her mind. She shuddered. Chapter 4. Brilliant yellow beams, tearful chatter, and lively tunes poured out of the community center's entrance, fighting back the freezing darkness. This remote valley hardly ever threw parties during the brutal freeze, yet rescuing the little girl had instantly sparked a massive impromptu festival. Someone whipped out a violin, another found a harmonica, and a spontaneous dance party instantly erupted right in the middle of the hall. Hanging by the rear wall, Elizabeth kept her gaze on John Sutton as he gently twirled a giggling Clara around. Things really flipped, Mrs. Wilson noted, suddenly materializing next to Elizabeth while holding a pair of hot apple ciders. He has almost losing what you love truly makes you value it. So true. The older woman gave her a piercing look. You seem drained, honey. Nobody could blame you for heading to bed. Honestly, profound exhaustion radiated through Elizabeth's entire body. The freezing weather, the rescue mission, and pure anxiety had utterly burned her out. Still, you probably have a point, she agreed. Please cover for me if anyone asks. Giving her the community will remember this. That reassurance brought her far more comfort than the hot drink. 6 weeks playing the wealthy city outsider, yet today finally brought genuine belonging. Stepping outdoors, the icy breeze bit sharply against her flushed skin. Snugging her coat tighter, she paused to take in the completely altered scenery. New powder coated the streets, sparkling fiercely beneath the lunar glow like crushed gems. Barely half a block down, an eerie feeling of being stalked shivered down her back. Wyatt lurked just steps away, his massive silhouette cutting through the darkness. "Sheriff," she greeted, her breath forming icy vapor between them. "Miss Harrington." He stepped closer. "Bailing on the party already?" "Seems you did too." His facial expression remained blank, yet his overall posture grew noticeably tighter. "Figured I should walk you back. I can easily manage a couple streets by myself." "I know exactly what you can do," he rumbled. Starting down the sidewalk again, it hardly shocked her when he seamlessly matched her pace. "Are you mad at me?" she pointed out while they rounded the corner toward her guest house. "Mad?" His tone remained rigidly restrained. "Worried." "Don't be. Look at me. I made it through without a scratch," she stated. "Pure dumb luck," he countered, a sharp grit lacing his words. "Your little stunt was courageous, yet incredibly stupid." She halted in her tracks. "A kid vanished in a whiteout. Did you expect me to just chill indoors while everyone else searched? I wanted you completely protected." The raw, aggressive intensity in his deep voice threw her entirely off guard. "Those frozen woods aren't meant for—" "Call me a delicate city girl and I'll lose my mind," she cut him off. "My background is entirely irrelevant." Stepping into her space, his massive frame dominated the moonlit sidewalk. "Can you even fathom how it tore me apart seeing you vanish into that storm?" She stood her ground, bristling. "Tore you apart? Since when do I need police permission to help someone, Sheriff?" "You don't." A predatory rumble vibrated from his chest, erasing the gap. "Which drives me insane. I despise just standing by while you put your life on the line." His audacity left her speechless. "Excuse me? We met exactly 6 weeks ago, and suddenly you magically own the right to boss me around? 6 weeks was all it took." Those amber irises glowed a dangerous gold. 6 weeks of you completely invading my mind. enduring an agonizing pull I can neither define nor control. She swallowed hard, suddenly fighting for air. Before tonight, she genuinely assumed his lecturing just stemmed from some alpha cop urge to keep the locals in line. But that intense, predatory stare told a totally different story. "You're acting like I hexed you," she whispered, fighting the tremor in her words. "Because you did," he admitted plainly, the brutal vulnerability of his confession knocking the wind out of her. A massive palm slammed against the iron fence beside her, the fabric of his jacket grazing her skin. "Just existing here," he rasped, "saying hello every single morning, trapping me in that heavy gaze. It's pure torture, knowing you didn't come here for me." "What do you mean?" The question spilled from her lips, unbidden. A dark smirk curved his mouth. "Did you seriously believe I wouldn't recognize William Harrington's own sister?" She inhaled sharply as he closed in at an agonizingly slow pace, dropping his face near her throat. A deep breath brushed her skin as he forcefully inhaled her natural fragrance. "You share his exact bloodline," he whispered against her pulse. "I smell it." Pure, paralyzing disbelief locked her muscles. "How is that even—" Yanking herself away, she gawked. "Are you implying my brother and I smell identical?" "Ridiculous," he scoffed, inhaling sharply as his nose twitched to catch the scent. "Bloodlines run deeper than looks," he growled softly. "You smell exactly like him, only far more tempting." Radiating warmth against the chilly evening air, his sheer proximity left her legs trembling, overriding her furious bewilderment. "Step back, Sheriff," she forced out, the reprimand barely escaping her throat as a hushed breath. "I know," he confessed with a deep, vibrating groan. "Heaven save me, Elizabeth. I intended to stay away, but watching you nearly get killed—" "My survival isn't your business," she snapped back, completely furious. "You're an absolute dictatorial, conceited jerk. While you," he snarled fiercely, "are insanely impulsive and totally unmanageable." A feral shadow eclipsed his gaze right before he claimed her lips in a sudden, ravenous kiss. Paralyzed by disbelief, she realized the exact guy she needed to avoid was stealing her very first kiss under the stars. Her lungs seized completely for a single, terrified second. Suddenly, a raw instinct flared to life, matching his fierce energy and destroying her self-control as her fingers tangled in his fabric to drag him nearer. Every warning sign and social rule vanished, entirely eclipsed by the crushing rush of his mouth moving against hers. Tearing himself back abruptly, Wyatt stood there gasping for air. "That was a mistake," he murmured huskily. "I'm sorry. Never again." She just stood there, grazing her own swollen mouth. 24 years living as a polite Bostonian gave her zero defense against this. "Have a good evening," the officer muttered, stepping backward. Silenced by the shock, she could only stare as he stalked off, vanishing entirely into the pitch-black night. Pivoting back to the guesthouse entrance, a solitary, eerie canine wail pierced the distant woods, ringing mournfully through the darkness. Chapter 5. 4 weeks following the incident with Clara, the entire community of Wolf Creek shifted from politely ignoring the new girl to fully accepting her. That massive shift showed up in countless tiny gestures. Shop owners held back premium goods for the local educator. Families hosted her for weekend meals, and little Billy even gifted her a crude, hand-whittled timber fruit. "Looks can be deceiving around here," her landlady noted, while the younger woman placed freshly picked blossoms into a living room jar. "Folks match the weather. They're guarded and icy during the freeze, but completely open up once the thaw hits." Grinning softly, she tweaked a single stem of vibrant alpine flora. "I really didn't plan on putting down roots this fast." "Rescuing one of our kids earns you instant loyalty," the senior replied. "You belong to the pack now." That phrase brought a cozy glow, yet severely tangled her original reasons for coming to this territory. Her entire goal had been investigating William's situation and exposing the hidden truth behind his current incarceration. But every single sunrise pushed that agenda further away, replaced by authentic, deep bonds with these locals. Well, except for a certain someone. Ever since that fateful evening out by the front fence, following that mind-bending kiss that constantly replayed in her sleep, the local lawman engineered a massive, intentional barrier between them. Whenever they accidentally bumped into each other on Wolf Creek's lone main avenue, he offered a stiff nod, those golden irises totally devoid of the feral heat she'd witnessed in the dark. At community events, he practically hugged the opposite walls. Catching her walking into the local market meant he'd instantly wrap up his purchases and bolt out the door. The dodging was absolute and completely intentional. Honestly, it should have felt like a massive burden lifted. He was fully aware of her hidden agenda, having somehow sniffed out her ties to William in a way she still found totally bizarre. Yet 30 days ticked by without a single rumor dropping about her real motives for visiting this territory. That heated run-in apparently forged a silent truce. He'd keep his mouth shut, provided she quit digging into his own mysteries. On paper, the deal was perfect. So why did his constant ghosting create this sharp, completely irrational pang in her heart? Logic simply could not justify it. Classes let out rapidly later that day, with students practically sprinting outdoors to soak up the sunshine following months of freezing misery. Staying behind at her workstation, she logged the latest test scores, soaking up the total silence following hours of chaotic teaching. "Hey, teach!" Glancing upward, she spotted young Clara lingering awkwardly near the frame, looking incredibly anxious. "Sweetheart, didn't you catch a ride with everyone else?" The kid just stood there, nervously wringing her jacket hem. "Are you feeling down?" That totally unexpected inquiry left the educator completely stunned. "Why would you say that?" "Because you've got that exact same stare my pops had when Mom passed, like you're masking a massive, invisible wound." The little girl closed the distance. "Are you sad the lawman stopped visiting?" A deep flush burned across her face. Was she truly that easy for a kid to figure out? "We barely know each other," she deflected. "But he's totally into you," the kid pressed. "It's super obvious. Plus, the feeling is mutual. It's okay to fall for him," she pleaded, "even with his condition." Her pulse hammered. "What do you mean, condition?" The girl peered over her shoulder before dropping to a whisper. "Remember my crazy stories about the pack?" Before she could interrogate the kid, a tall silhouette blocked the light. A slender guy in a bespoke suit hovered in the entrance, sporting angular cheekbones and a predatory gaze. Every instinct screamed at her to back away. "Sorry to barge in." His slick, upper-crust accent clashed hard with the town's rugged vibe. "Am I interrupting?" The kid retreated, visibly spooked by the stranger. "Can I do something for you?" she demanded, stepping protectively in front of her student. "Jack Reed," the man offered, striding inside with a leather-clad palm thrust forward. "From the Silver Peak firm. I've been dying to finally meet you, miss." She gave his fingers a quick, stiff squeeze. "Charmed, though I'm pretty confused why you're here." His grin remained entirely hollow. "We share a certain mutual friend, so to speak." "Hey, kiddo," she murmured, glaring at the suit. "Your dad's probably waiting. Head on home." After the student scampered off, she crossed her arms. "Who exactly are we discussing here?" "William." The corporate slicker studied her face intently. "He's your sibling, right?" Ice flooded her veins. "How could you possibly?" He casually swatted the air. "Word travels fast around here. Hidden truths always float to the top if you interrogate the right locals. Get to the point." Her polite facade shattered completely. "Exactly what you're after." He strolled over to inspect her sparse library. "Vengeance for your sibling and exposing Wyatt. No idea what you mean." He sneered. "Your brother was on my payroll before they locked him up. Did he leave that out of his mail?" She gripped the wooden table until her knuckles turned white. "He's doing time for robbery," she argued. "Allegedly." His tone grew gravelly. "Yet we're both aware that's garbage. Just like we know the local cop is hiding a monstrous side." "Spit it out without the riddles, Jack," she growled. "Seeing is believing." He pulled a sealed parchment from his blazer, tossing it onto her workspace. "Do exactly what this says to uncover the real reason your sibling is caged and what the cop actually is." She refused to even poke the paper. "Give me one reason to believe a word of this, because I'm not the one feeding you fairy tales." He tugged his leather cuffs, turning toward the exit. "Your brother called me a liar too. That doubt got him locked away. So, teach. Are you ready to lose everything just to stay blissfully ignorant?" Once she was alone, the teacher froze, glaring at the letter like it was a live grenade. Finally, the temptation won out. Tearing it open, she found a cryptic map pointing deep into the woods, a post-midnight rendezvous, and bizarre orders to mask her body odor with evergreen sap. The whole thing felt like a cheesy thriller novel, but between his sheer arrogance, the weirdly precise demands, and his knowledge of her brother's job, she couldn't just brush it off. Masking her natural smell totally tracked with how the cop acted previously, sniffing her skin and obsessing over her aroma. What was the hidden truth? Chapter 6. "You seem totally spaced out," her landlady noted while she pushed food around her plate. "Classroom drama? Exhausted, honestly." She forced a weak grin. "The warmer weather makes my students absolutely feral. Honestly, the corporate guy's pop-in had wrecked her nerves." His threat looped in her mind. "Cop is hiding things. Need backup. Hurry." Absolute peril. She spent the entire night totally zoned out. Post-meal, she escaped upstairs, claiming she had homework to grade. In reality, she obsessed over her sibling's mail for the 100th go-around. Her mind drifted to those glowing golden irises and his suspicious awareness of her family drama. Why exactly did the sheriff lock her brother away? And was that silver-tongued opportunist, Reed, actually holding the key to this mystery? Trailing him through those dark woods spelled trouble. Reckless, sure. But staying ignorant would kill her. Her mind drifted to Wyatt, their stolen kiss, and that agonizingly intense gaze right before he retreated. What secret was he guarding? The following 24 hours vanished in a complete blur. She drifted through her daily studies on pure autopilot, entirely distracted. Once dusk cloaked Wolf Creek, she perched by the glass, captivated by the ascending lunar glow. The moonlight painted the streets in an eerie, ethereal wash, leaving the bordering woods cloaked in pitch black. Under 5 hours remained until she had to brave those shadows solo, per Reed's orders. A gentle rap at the door snapped her to reality. Mrs. Wilson hovered in the corridor, presenting a hot mug. "Whatever is eating at you, sweetheart. Just know that carrying burdens solo makes them weigh a ton." "I am perfectly fine," Elizabeth bluffed. "Just mulling over a few choices. Pondering our local lawman, I bet." Seeing the younger woman flinch, the older lady laughed softly. "This place is terrible at keeping things hushed up. Plenty of girls around here have tried sinking their claws into Wyatt Hayes, yet nobody has captivated him, quite like you. Please, the guy stares at you constantly whenever he assumes nobody is noticing." The landlady pressed on, describing an intense longing that would ruin his reputation if the locals did not revere him. Giving her a reassuring squeeze, she added, "Whatever barrier exists between you two is definitely deeper than you admit." Alone again, she nursed her drink, her brain spinning wildly. Would unearthing this mystery alter her feelings for the sheriff? By 11 o'clock, the residence fell completely silent. Slipping into pitch-black garments, she tied off her heavy footwear and threw on a thick wrap. Reaching under her mattress, she grabbed the small glass bottle a local kid had delivered earlier. The guidelines were incredibly precise. Dab the serum on pulse points, neck, and ears. Absolutely no lanterns. Track the game trail extending past Widow's Rock, taking the left split straight into the meadow. Be there before 12. Hide within the rock formations up north and sit tight. This was pure insanity. Still, she popped the latch on her casement, thankful her quarters overlooked the secluded courtyard out back. Navigating the slanted overhang with caution, she let herself drop lightly onto the grass below. Lunar beams illuminated her route toward the borders. She hugged the dark patches, her pulse racing with a mix of dread and thrill. The timberland towered ahead, far more menacing and bleak than it ever appeared under the sun. She paused at the tree line. Have I lost my mind? Blindly obeying some sketchy directions from a thoroughly unreliable guy. Just as she considered retreating, a silhouette broke through the foliage. Imposing and completely recognizable despite the gloom. The sheriff. She instantly locked up, flattening her spine against a massive evergreen. Safely tucked away, she observed him inspecting his equine gear with intense, calculated precision. He looked ready to embark on a ride, which was completely absurd given the dead of night. Unless... That shady tip suddenly clicked in her brain. The exact hour. The specific spot. This was no accident. Did that schemer realize the lawman would show up? Without giving her a moment to second guess, he swung into the saddle and trotted down the exact dirt track she was supposed to hike. She held her ground until he vanished into the timber, then crept after him, her chest hammering. The nocturnal woods thrummed with life, scurrying critters shifting the dead leaves, and the breeze hissing through the high branches. She kept her, spacing behind him, counting her blessings for the brilliant lunar glow lighting the dirt. 30 minutes of trudging later, the dirt path split. He veered left instantly, proving the informant possessed accurate intel. Tailing him, her dread regarding the whole situation skyrocketed. Eventually, the narrow trek spilled into a massive meadow bordered by colossal evergreens. Giant stones clustered along the top ridge, matching the given intel perfectly. Ducking behind the biggest rock, she peeked toward the illuminated grass. He was already off his stallion, standing dead center. The steed remained totally chill, clearly used to whatever bizarre midnight ceremony was coming next. Time crawled by in absolute stillness. He remained motionless, gazing up at the moon, immersed in quiet meditation. Just as she assumed this trip was a massive mistake, he started stripping off his clothes. Heat rushed to her face when his top came off, exposing thick muscles sculpted by years of grueling labor. A decent woman would have turned around. Instead, she stayed glued to the spot, watching and carefully stack every garment over a fallen tree. Bearing his entirely naked body under the glowing night sky, she finally forced her gaze aside, deeply embarrassed yet completely captivated by his flawless physique. This wasn't what she anticipated finding out here. An unnatural noise pulled her focus around. A deep, agonizing grunt ripping straight out of his chest. Glancing back, she saw him collapsed in the dirt, muscles locked tight, an expression twisted in sheer agony. Terror seized her heart. Was he sick or injured? Did she need to step out and help? That choice vanished as his physical form shifted, knuckles stretching while fingertips hooked into razor-sharp talons. Thick hair erupted over shifting flesh, while his spine bowed upward and his bulk expanded violently. It was a rapid, brutal, and entirely inhuman process. She slapped a palm over her lips to trap her own scream. In his place stood a colossal beast, its ash coat shimmering under the stars, alongside distinctly golden irises. Her reality shattered completely. The esteemed local lawman wasn't just human. He was a literal, living myth. Chapter 7. Pacing closer, the giant animal dropped its snout, taking a deep breath right where she previously waited. That familiar golden stare held a terrifyingly human intelligence. Hiding flat against the freezing rock, she held her breath. Her shoe snapped a dry branch. His heavy skull snapped toward her, listening intently, triggering a mindless panic. She sprinted blindly through the thicket, clothes catching on briars while branches whipped her skin. A surprised rumble echoed behind her. Uneven ground and hidden rocks made every moonlit step treacherous. Then came the sound. Heavy, calculated paws hitting the dirt. The beast was tracking her. She was spotted. This unbelievable reality felt like a nightmare. The town's leading authority figure, the guy she shared an intimate moment with, was an actual monster. She dove deeper into the unmapped forest, muscles shaking and chest heaving for air. Lost and terrified, she just needed to escape this brand new, terrifying reality. A massive dead tree blocked her escape route. Tearing her dress, she hauled herself across but crashed down awkwardly. A shooting pain flared in her wrenched foot, yet she swallowed her scream and hobbled forward. An eerie quiet swallowed the timberland. Every cricket and owl stopped making noise. Nothing echoed except her gasps and the crunching dead leaves. Her pursuer seemingly vanished. More terrifyingly, He was stalking her from the perimeter. She staggered into an open, moonlit space surrounded by pitch-black evergreens. A fleeting, desperate second made her think she was safe, until a snarl erupted ahead. 3 wild scavengers crept out of the dark, their stares glowing dangerously. Their skeletal frames showed through patchy coats. These were actual starving predators, and she had zero backup. Retreating inch by inch, she grabbed a heavy wooden stick. "Get away!" she ordered shakily, as the pack spread wide, flashing sharp teeth. A 4th crept along her flank before number 5 closed the circle. The alpha lowered its haunches, ready to attack. Pulse racing, she hoisted her makeshift weapon, knowing she was about to die. The leader lunged. A gray streak intercepted it mid-jump, causing a sickening crack of shattered ribs. A deafening roar vibrated through the trees. The local sheriff, now an enormous beast, shielded her while fresh crimson stained his pelt. The wild dogs paused, then swarmed him. He retaliated with absolute savagery, snapping a neck instantly while slashing another open. Yet he was outnumbered, and one sneakily flanked his blind spot. She swung her club desperately, smashing the ambusher right across its snout. Whimpering, it scrambled away, giving her protector enough time to finish off another foe. Though dripping red, the massive shifter kept shredding his enemies. Finally, the surviving scavengers retreated into the blackness. He pursued them briefly with a vicious roar before spinning around, panting heavily through torn skin. She remained paralyzed, white-knuckling her makeshift weapon. This terrifying monster, her town's leader, had just rescued her. As he stumbled forward, favoring one leg, she breathed out a ridiculously obvious statement. "You're bleeding." The creature's ears flicked in innate comprehension. As he dropped the branch, she murmured, "Let me fix this." His exhausted gaze locked onto hers before he cautiously collapsed onto the ground. "I'm grabbing your horse and gear. Don't move." She could have sworn the beast gave a faint nod. Pulse racing and ankles screaming in pain, she hobbled back, discovering the stallion waiting peacefully beside the massive rock. The animal didn't flinch while she dug the sheriff's garments out of the leather pouches. Coaxing the mount along took time. Despite initial resistance, her soothing tone and gentle grip won out. The beast had vanished. Now, a bare, heavily bleeding and completely senseless Wyatt lay there. Kneeling rapidly, she threw his jacket across his bare skin, noting the severe shoulder laceration and profusely bleeding leg. "Wyatt," she breathed, resting her palm against his jawline. He was burning up. "A fever." Ripping fabric from her underskirt for makeshift bandages, she quickly wrapped the injuries before glancing at the stallion. Getting him up seemed impossible, yet failure wasn't an option. Muscles burning, she wrestled his heavy frame onto the leather, blushing at the sheer physical contact. She managed to wrestle him into pants and a button-down, using his leather strap to keep him anchored. Their return trip proved agonizingly sluggish. She stopped frequently to inspect the dressings, murmuring soothing words to the stallion while begging the universe for invisibility. Finally, the outline of Wolf Creek materialized ahead. Sticking to the darkest alleyways, she steered the mount toward the secluded shack behind the station, thankful for the utter darkness. Unloading his dead weight nearly snapped her spine, yet she successfully hauled his limp form through the doorway. The Spartan interior held only essentials, a mattress, a heater, and reading material. After dumping him on the bed, she grabbed fresh sheets and liquor to sanitize the gashes. Pure intuition took over, lending her fingers a medical precision she didn't actually possess. Finishing up, she draped a damp rag across his forehead and collapsed into a nearby chair just as dawn broke. This man had thrown himself into danger, exposing his darkest truth just to keep her safe. Yet the mystery remained. What exactly was he? How would he react upon waking? Exhaustion pulled her chin to her chest, her fingers brushing his as a restless, troubled slumber claimed her. Chapter 8. A sudden start yanked Elizabeth awake, bringing an intense ache to her cramped neck. The sheriff remained motionless on the mattress, though his chest rose and fell evenly now. She leaned over, gently checking his temperature. His fever was completely gone. A massive wave of comfort washed over her, But as she pulled away, his eyelids snapped open. She remained paralyzed, totally captivated by the raw, unguarded emotion swimming in his irises. "You're back with us," she finally whispered. "Any pain?" Genuine shock momentarily flashed across his face. "I've had better days," he rasped, vocal cords thick from unconsciousness. Scrambling up to collect her scattered nerves, she poured a glass from the night's supply. "You bled out quite a bit," she murmured softly. Those gashes were severe. He drained the glass completely before setting it aside, his face turning incredibly serious. "You needed to run away." "You literally kept me alive," Elizabeth countered, holding eye contact. "I'd be dead meat right now if you hadn't fought off that pack, right after you sprinted away from me like a bat out of hell," he pointed out. She flushed, hotly recalling her terrified escape, though shockingly he gave a sad, accepting smirk. "Nobody's ever ready for this side of me," he whispered. "I sure as hell wasn't when it all started." She furrowed her brow in confusion. "I was only 11 years old," he clarified, bunking with a local hunter who just needed cheap labor. "Never met my real folks." A muscle ticked in his cheek. Out of nowhere, my entire skeleton started snapping and twisting into something else. I was absolutely certain I was a goner. The sheer agony lacing his words brought a painful lump to her throat. "You were practically a baby," she breathed. "A kid who opened his eyes at dawn, completely drenched in gore," he admitted bluntly. "You took a life." My foster dad. His delivery was completely deadpan, yet a ghost of absolute horror swam in his stare. He ran in when the yelling started. My venom. It's a death sentence for mortals. I had absolutely zero idea or control. Heavy silence filled the room. "Don't blame yourself," Elizabeth insisted. "You were way too young to grasp any of it." "Comprehension doesn't exactly reverse a murder," he countered with a bitter scowl. "Since then, I always lock myself away before the shift hits." "Wait, so nobody in town has a clue?" "What, you think I should casually drop the news at the next community council?" Sarcasm dripped from his words. "Just walk up to the folks relying on my badge and admit their local lawman morphs into a lethal, venomous beast?" She came up blank. "Humanity is terrified of the unknown," Wyatt stated flatly. "I've survived by hiding among citizens who would gladly mount my head on a wall if they found out. And, honestly, they'd be entirely in the right." A pang of sympathy tightened Elizabeth's chest. "But you've mastered the shifting by now, right? If the public found out—" Wyatt cut her off. "There are humans who actively hunt my kind. 5 years ago, a guy named Lewis Holden arrived in Wolf Creek for that exact reason." Her brow furrowed deeply. "How would a regular guy even know shifters exist?" "Generational lore, probably." A muscle feathered in his jaw. "Holden had me pegged from day one. He snooped around, keeping tabs on my every move." She lowered her voice. "Did you end him?" Agony flashed in his eyes. "I did my best to steer clear, but the guy wouldn't quit. Tracked me deep into the woods one evening. His knuckles went white against the bed covers. I caught his scent and knew I was being hunted, but the shift had already kicked in. There's no hitting the brakes on that. The second he saw the fur, he lunged with a silver blade. Wyatt grazed his flank, tracing a faded, jagged line across his ribcage. He carved me up before I even had a chance to block. I fought the urge to snap, but during the brawl, he shut his eyes tight. My fangs barely grazed his forearm. Turns out, that's all it took. The venom finished him, she exhaled quietly. Wyatt gave a bleak nod. I lugged his corpse back to city limits and blamed a rogue bear attack. A dry, hollow chuckle escaped his throat, which was essentially the truth. You'd think it ended there, but no. Holden had backup. A shadow fell over his face. His buddy Jackson Reed rolled back into town a few days after. Walked in to find his partner in a body bag while I was pitching my wild predator cover story. Her muscles locked up. Jackson Reed, she murmured. So that explains why he cornered me on campus, and how he had all that dirt on you. Wyatt shot her a sharp, guarded look. When exactly did Reed corner you? Roughly 24 hours before I trailed you into the woods. That bastard has been stalking me, Wyatt growled. Ever since Holden bought it, he's been hell-bent on closing his partner's open case. A gasp escaped her lips. That explains why he used William to dig up dirt on you. He's picking up the hunt where Holden left off, treating the locals like cannon fodder. His tone turned to pure granite. What actually went down with William? She pressed, needing answers. He let out a heavy exhale. Reed paid him off to investigate local werewolf sightings, brainwashing the kid with campfire tales about beasts posing as humans. The guy was naive, easily manipulated, and desperately needed a paycheck, I'm guessing. He tailed me long enough to witness my shift, but instead of facing me head-on like his boss did, he played it safe, smashed into the metal refinery to swipe pure silver for custom ammo. He locked eyes with her. I busted him red-handed. It was a valid felony bust, burglary and grand larceny. But I definitely pulled strings to keep him locked up way past his release date. I arranged a transfer to a state penitentiary just to slap a gag order on his little discovery. A thick tension settled over the room. So, you're confessing to an abuse of power? She challenged. I was terrified, he confessed rawly. Terrified of the fallout if the locals realized a monster was living right next door. This community. His rough voice dropped to register. They're my makeshift family, my safe haven. It's the only real home I've known in years. But you know how paranoid society gets. If someone leaked hard proof, he gave a grim shake of his head. They'd form a lynch mob overnight. Panic turns even the most decent humans into absolute savages. The crushing reality of his lonely existence washed over her. A lifetime of wearing masks, completely unseen by the world. Has anyone ever actually embraced your true nature? She murmured, heartbreak laced in her tone. Everyone who figured it out immediately tried to put a bullet in my brain, he answered flatly. A deep ache fractured her chest. Well, I know your secret, she pointed out. Does the monster terrify you too? The loaded question hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I probably should expect you to run, he confessed, but I keep catching myself wishing for a life I have no business dreaming about. A heavy pause settled as he carefully chose his next phrase. Ever since you showed up in town, I've been hit with sensations I can't even process. The literal second you stepped off the transit line, my entire being just locked onto you. Not just the man. My inner beast claimed you immediately. Her lungs froze. Explain that, she demanded, breathless. It's the way you smell, he rasped. It acts like a magnetic pull I can't fight off. I can track your exact location completely blindfolded. When I'm lying in bed at midnight, the rhythm of your heart pounds in my ears like your head is resting on my chest. Her own pulse instantly skyrocketed. A sudden heat rushed to her cheeks. Then why push me away this whole time? For your own good, he gritted out, his grip mangling the bedsheets. Sharing your personal space makes the beast absolutely frantic. I'm constantly starving for you. Back at the Wilson estate, touching you was completely out of line, but my self-control just snapped. Blazing golden irises pinned her in place. You completely consume me, Elizabeth. Whether walking on 2 legs or 4, this invisible tether drags me straight towards you. I constantly patrol your residence after dark simply to stay close. You were observing me, she murmured softly. These emotions are completely unprecedented. This undeniable magnetism absolutely scares the hell out of me. Mostly because I purposefully isolated myself my entire existence. Raw emotion briefly softened his tough exterior. I'm extremely lethal. This overwhelming affection is drowning me. My animal half demands you as a mate. And the human side, he paused. What about him? She urged. My craving for you transcends anything I've ever felt for anyone else. It goes far beyond basic physical attraction. Even if God knows those steamy fantasies plague my sleep. I ache to wake up beside you daily, listening to your laughter echo through this house and smelling that subtle hint of your fragrance. He choked up slightly. I long to finally unburden the massive secrets I've carried entirely alone since boyhood. The sheer intensity of his confession left her completely speechless. Nobody had ever bared their soul so authentically. Suddenly, a harsh edge hardened his deep voice. "You need to face reality, Elizabeth. I am half monster, and my fangs are utterly lethal. I cannot guarantee you any sort of normal future." "I get to decide that," she replied gently. "You couldn't possibly understand." "I struggle to put my own emotions into words too," she cut in. "My pulse absolutely skyrockets around you. William brought me to this town, yet my reason for remaining—" Pausing briefly, she confessed, "I stuck around because of you." A fleeting spark of optimism lit his gaze, before he swiftly masked it. "You are speaking pure nonsense. You are a man who survived through sheer terror, but still decided to defend innocents instead of hurting them. You risked absolutely everything just to rescue me." Giving his fingers a reassuring press, she continued, "My knowledge of your supernatural side might be limited, Wyatt Hayes, but I am absolutely certain you deserve deep affection." Shadows danced in his gaze as his attention dropped directly to her mouth. "Elizabeth," he breathed out, sounding both cautious and desperate. Getting the message, she closed the distance and pressed her mouth to his, offering deep reassurance and total devotion, rather than simple lust. It marked the dawn of a beautiful connection they had both been too terrified to pray for. Chapter 9. 60 minutes afterward, Elizabeth bumped into Mrs. Wilson standing just past the front steps of their residence. "Lord Almighty, dear, I seriously thought some wild beasts dragged you off into the woods." She looked worried rather than critical. "School is off for the day," Elizabeth announced. "Our local lawman took a nasty hit while tracking game." "Tracking game, huh?" Mrs. Wilson repeated, dripping with obvious disbelief. "The kids will certainly celebrate a day off. Tell me what supplies you require. Meals? Medical dressings?" Elizabeth paused slightly. "Just total secrecy, please." The older woman gave an agreeable bob of her head. "I will have Billy Thompson's mom drop off some hot soup. Go nurse our chief of police." Pivoting around, she noticed a sudden shift in the shadows opposite her as a slender silhouette darted into an alleyway. Speeding up her walk, heading for the local market, someone suddenly muffled her screams and forcefully pulled her into the dark passage. "Stay absolutely silent," Reed whispered viciously, jabbing a freezing firearm directly into her side. "Otherwise, I will execute you on this exact spot." Pure terror suffocated her. "Why are you doing this?" she finally gasped out after his hand shifted slightly. "Vengeance," he growled, sounding utterly unhinged. "That beast of yours slaughtered my friend, and the locals need to see his real face." Shoving her violently into the open road right as Sunday service concluded, the entire congregation fell utterly silent, witnessing the hostage situation unfold. "Morning, fine folks of Wolf Creek," he shouted out. "Today is the day we finally settle some massive scores." Mr. Peterson bravely advanced a step. "What in the world are you doing, Reed? Release Mrs. Harrington immediately." Nobody moves until the ugly reality is exposed. The gunman dug his fingers in deeper. "Go get your precious lawman. He better walk out here without weapons or this educator gets a bullet." Elizabeth noticed young Billy Thompson dash away from the bystanders, rushing straight for Wyatt's home. The surrounding locals were completely paralyzed by shock. "He has lost his damn mind," Elizabeth screamed out. "Ignore every word he—" The metal muzzle dug bruisingly deep into her flesh. "That hero cop you all worship is a complete fraud," Reed proclaimed loudly. "The guy is literally a supernatural beast, not a man at all." Whispers immediately erupted among the residents, blending sheer denial with nervous laughter. Suddenly, the sea of people split open. Wyatt strode through, looking ghostly white yet incredibly focused, with his fresh wound clearly showing through a sloppy, unfastened top. He had completely abandoned his duty belt. "Release the girl, Reed," he commanded in a low register. "Our issue does not involve her." "Actually, this involves the entire damn town today." The attacker's tone turned incredibly lethal. "Reveal your true self to them. Shift into that beast, or she catches a bullet." "What crazy nonsense is he spewing, Chief?" an onlooker questioned nervously. Wyatt kept his death glare locked securely on the hostile man. Back down before things escalate. I spent 5 whole years plotting this exact moment. The crazed man's grip tightened dangerously around the firing mechanism. Shift immediately. Elizabeth noticed him quivering, fueled entirely by sick excitement rather than any actual terror. The psycho was absolutely craving a bloodbath. Moving at a painfully sluggish pace, Wyatt unclasped his silver star and dropped it into the dirt. He swept his gaze across the gathered assembly of locals, the very people he had spent ages keeping entirely safe. Give me right in. Skeletal frames snapped and flesh morphed as dark coats of hair burst forth. In a heartbeat, an enormous beast replaced the officer. Panic shattered the quiet as parents grabbed their kids and people scrambled for defense. "Look at him," Reed yelled. "A literal demon hiding in plain sight." Yet the creature did not flinch, keeping his glowing golden eyes fixed entirely on Elizabeth, while his captor continued to holler. "This freak murdered my buddy. Who's going to back me up and put it down?" Dead quiet followed until the elderly diner owner pushed through the crowd. Petite, she pivoted to face the neighbors. "Who tracked down the Miller toddler when she wandered off? He gave my teenage son some much-needed discipline," Mrs. Thompson echoed. A chorus of agreement washed over the group, making the gunman hesitate. "We look out for our own here." Losing his mind, the rogue agent aimed his firearm. "Then burn in hell alongside him." Smash! The attacker shrieked when massive teeth crushed his forearm, dropping his pistol instantly. Several neighbors tackled the guy while the beast backed off. Heaving heavily, the giant animal stood there, bleeding from newly torn injuries. Slowly, the metamorphosis reversed itself. Hair melted away and joints realigned until the sheriff collapsed to his knees, struggling for air. The local mechanic walked over, throwing a heavy jacket around his bare torso. Breathing hard, the chief stared up at the speechless bystanders. Dropping down right next to him, Elizabeth gently intertwined her fingers with his own. "Your cut's opened up," she whispered softly, checking the damage. Whispers echoed around them before the diner owner leaned down to pick up his discarded police shield. Wiping the dirt off on her jeans, she extended her hand. "Pretty sure you dropped this, boss." Utterly shocked, he met her gaze. She offered a warm smile. "Like I said, we protect our family." Slowly, murmurs of agreement rippled through the onlookers. Not everyone, but the majority. Leaning heavily on his partner, the bruised man stood up. Fastening the star to his borrowed jacket, he accepted his position back. His darkest secret was out. Yet his city still wanted him. Epilogue. Fresh spring blooms decorated the local community center, beautifully revamped for the event using fresh greenery and vibrant petals. Sweet floral scents rode the gentle winds, lightly tugging at the edges of the bride's elegant gown. 90 days had flown by since the officer's supernatural identity became public knowledge. It took 3 months to process things, but the community ultimately formed an even tighter connection with their paranormal guardian. Brushing invisible wrinkles from her outfit, the young woman could barely process that this moment was finally happening. The standard meeting hall felt totally new, with all the folding tables shoved aside to create an open dance floor and seating area. Peeking through the entryway, she noticed loved ones. The diner owner was already crying, while John and Clara wore their finest formal outfits. Even the usually hyperactive teenage boy managed to sit quietly, just kicking his sneakers a bit. "Good to go, Liz?" Her brother hovered nearby, fidgeting in a rented tuxedo. His pale complexion served as a stark reminder of his recent stint in county lockup. "Absolutely," she replied, grabbing his elbow. "Honestly shocked you actually agreed to walk me down the aisle." He gave a gentle smile. "He treats you right, kid. Shifter or human, it doesn't matter." Together they walked into the room. Locking eyes with her soon-to-be husband, she noticed his golden stare radiating an unprecedented level of absolute happiness. The visiting officiant, likely brought in through the diner owner's sneaky networking, kicked off the short and sweet wedding service. Grasping her palms, the rugged cop offered a comforting, rough warmth. "The beast inside my soul bows to the beauty in yours." 2 completely different worlds tied together forever. A soft wave of whispers washed through the seated guests, not out of fear, but pure support. "With the power granted to me by the state, you are officially married," the officiant announced. "Go ahead and kiss her." As their mouths collided to finalize the vows, the young woman finally felt whole. Her journey started as a quest for vengeance, yet it ended with a permanent family, a true calling, and an absolutely magical romance. "Hello there, wifey," the officer whispered softly. She grinned back. "Hey yourself, handsome." Interlocking fingers, the couple pivoted toward their community. Everyone stood up, cheering loudly for the local teacher and the supernatural protector who kept them safe. Massive thanks for tuning in. I truly hope you loved this ride. It was a bit different from my usual uploads, since we dropped some intense shifter drama into a modern setting. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Did this paranormal urban twist work well for you? Drop your whispers below. I truly crave your magical insights. Until our next enchanted chapter unfolds, yours eternally, Lily.